Welcome back, everyone, to the Hidden Gem Podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Kizlewski. Thank you again for joining us back here after our last episode. We had a great talk last week with Cindy and Collie. We got a lot on the docket as usual today. We are going to be talking with the new interim director of WESM, Scott Schaefer, who is formerly our collections manager. We will also be talking about some of the museum events that had happened and how those went and how everything is going, and some possible new upcoming events that we have for the museum as well. After that, we will be talking with geology professor here at the UWO Fox Cities campus, Dr. Beth Johnson, and her trip to Iceland and what she experienced for geology and everything earth science out there. So there's a lot on the docket. Stay tuned, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back. I am now joined by WESM Interim Director Scott Schaefer, who you probably formerly known as the Collections Manager. Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing today, Trevor?
It's been a busy day here. We've had a lot of tours. It's our busy season for tours, so getting into that, but yeah.
They're intense, but we like busy. Busy works for us.
For sure. So you were formerly the Collections Manager, but stepped into the role of Interim Director as Dr. Joseph Fredrickson, our previous director, had left.
True.
How have you been settling into the role? Challenges or some new things coming up?
It's a change, but it's fun. It all supports the museum, so all the work is all in the right direction. That's what we want. I do miss working with the rocks as much as I do, but we did recently have some events that got me, back into working with the rocks that I really like doing.
Absolutely, yeah. Talking about that, our Rock ID Day, where we literally had the entire public just bring out all their rocks and gems and fossils and everything that they had no clue about, and you had the chance to identify them with Collie, our collections manager.
We did, and that's one of the things that I really do like doing. We don't get as much time to do that, and we also do have to set some limits. Some people will bring us 50, 100, 200 rocks, and realistically, when we have a line of the public waiting, we can only identify a few for each.
Was there any cool things that stuck out to you that you got the chance to identify, or something that you hadn't seen before?
Absolutely. One person was definitely as big of a nerd for geosci as we are, and they had really good eyes. They spotted some excellent materials that they brought from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which, as you know, and as the public probably knows, we have a lot of features for mining heritage, in which case northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan had many mines for iron, copper, silver came out of there as well. And we had one individual bring us some specimens that were volcanic, that had some beautiful, it's a black faceted crystal called augite.
Okay.
Beautiful augite crystals in his collection, and I was very excited since my background is paleontology. I have recently familiarized myself with this mineral, a beautiful specimen that'll be seen on Mineral Monday coming up. No less.
All right.
A beautiful specimen that I am now confident in identifying. So this individual had beautiful things like that, and they also brought us one very rare mineral called mohawkite.
Ooh.
It's actually a metallic, you could say, sort of an alloy that naturally occurs, and it's from only the town of Mohawk in the Upper Peninsula, in the Keweenaw.
Okay, now I gotta ask, does this mineral, does it have a mohawk on it?
It does not. It derived its name clearly from the town from where the mines were.
Does the town have a mohawk on it?
It does not either. But the mine where it came from is the only mine in the world you can find this. Okay. And for the longest time, it wasn't even known to be it was thought to have been a pure metal, and it's now recognized that it's a mixture of copper, silver, arsenic, which is the reason why they stopped smelting it, among other trace metals. So it's a beautiful metal. It's a very pale golden hue, but it is dangerous to work with if you're trying to process the copper and the silver out of it. So you can find it as a curiosity or a very rare mineral if you are a mineral collector. That's usually the only way you will see it.
Gotcha. That's awesome. And then we also had our Joanne Kusendorf show that also kind of literally was like the week, I think, after our Rock ID Day. So how did that go? I mean, this was actually your first time really running the whole thing.
Well, this was the first time any of us from the museum had running this show. Typically it was held at a different venue, but that venue closed just a few months prior to us knowing about it.
Yeah.
In years past, going all the way back to a decade ago, that show was held here on campus, which makes sense. It benefits the museum. It is a fundraiser for us.
Yeah.
But we were able to quite literally double the funds we raised because it was brought back here to the Fox Cities campus, which is really exciting for us. So we had visitors coming through the museum. They were supporting us with their admissions, random donations, as well as participating in the silent auction in a venue just down the hallway.
And all of that helps bring, again, funds back to the museum to keep our educational programs going and for us to purchase new items and new equipment for the museum that we have been wanting to get to expand our research and everything else.
And in the near future, hopefully we're hoping to have for the public a listing to see what our wish list is for some of the items that we need. Soft brick and tile soft for soft rock materials, some lapidary stuff so we can kind of clean up some of the specimens we have.
For sure.
There's a lot of exciting things that are going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Another exciting thing, and I hope I can get this all edited up again, because we film this and then we put it out, is we have a dino egg hunt coming up on Saturday, March 30th. So if we're premiering this, it should premiere on Wednesday, and technically then that Saturday, this upcoming Saturday when you're seeing this, will be the dinosaur egg hunt, unless if we get it out in time, we should.
It's and what are the hours for that one again?
That's 10 to 1 p.m. So we invite all people or all kids of all ages, parents and adults, come on out to our Easter egg hunt. We're going to have Easter eggs hidden throughout not Easter eggs, dino eggs hidden throughout the entire museum. We have a golden egg at the top of the hour as well, where you can win a small little prize as well from the gift shop. So
no matter what you celebrate, come on out because those dino eggs are going to be hidden. Some very well hidden.
I think we found a couple last week. So.
Some hopefully not that well hidden where we're finding them a year later, but some well enough hidden. Others will be out there so the little kids can find them as well.
Cool. All right, well, it seems like a lot of stuff is going on at the museum, and hopefully we can have you on for another podcast, but thank you again for your time today.
We'll have to talk about brachiopods. We
do. I know. You love the brachiopods. This guy, I tell you, you get him on brachiopods, he won't shut up. All right, well, coming up after the break, we will have Dr. Johnson, the UWO Fox Cities geology professor, on to talk about her trip to Iceland and, again, all of the geology wonders that she experienced while she was out there. So join us after the break. Welcome to the Weiss Earth Science Museum. We are a 5,000 square foot museum that focuses on earth science and Wisconsin's geologic history. From geology, mineralogy, and paleontology, we cover it all. Explore our many exhibits that delve into the rich history of Wisconsin. We are a very interactive museum where you can make an earthquake, walk through a recreation of a 19th century lead mine, blow up a quarry, and touch real dinosaur bones. We are open from Wednesdays through Fridays, 12 to 4:30 p.m., Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and we are a free admission museum with recommended donations of $3 for adults and $1 for kids. We hope to see you soon. All right, welcome back. I am now joined by UWO Fox Cities geology professor, Dr. Johnson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
I know this interfered with a little bit of the scheduling, but I'm glad we could have you on. So you here are at the university. You are a geology professor. What do you exactly all do? I mean, there's obviously lots of types of different geology and stuff that you can do.
Yes, so I am the geology professor here, and I say that because I'm the only one here. So why not be the head of the department then?
Fair enough.
I teach all introductory geology classes as well as a 200 level class on global climate change.
Okay.
And that's really nice because that's actually in line with my area of expertise in geology, which is glacial landscapes.
Okay.
So we call that quaternary geology.
Oh, that's that hard word that I can never remember.
All of my students try to put too many R's in it because they think it's like the word quarter.
Gotcha. All right. So you took a trip to Iceland. It wasn't just for a vacation, now that I'm aware, but it was for an opportunity for geoscience educators to actually study the local geology there and bring it back to the classroom. So how was the trip? What did you learn? And what are you bringing back to the classroom?
Okay, well, the trip was through an organization that's called Geo Etc., which is a place that teachers can go to get resource materials that they can use for their classes, but they also offer a number of field experiences for educators. And when you're studying geology, the ability to be able to get out into the field and actually see these things in context is so incredibly important. And so they offer trips around the world. They've got one that's coming up going to New Zealand, which I would love to go on. But the one that I happened to do was the geology of Iceland. So we studied the volcanic geology of Iceland as well as the glacial geology of Iceland. And that latter part was so hugely important to me because as a glacial geologist, I get to study what the glaciers leave behind, but I had not been able to do much with active glaciers up until that point.
Absolutely.
So I'm told that I did squeal like a little girl. So
did you actually get to see like real glaciers
Yes.
and stuff? Okay, so that's, I mean, we give tours all day long here. We talk about the Ice Age coming through Wisconsin and having these glaciers, but I just tell them like they're a mile high and, you know, kind of stuff like that. But for someone to actually experience it, it's probably a different a story on that.
it was. One of the places that we got to go to was Vatnajökull National Park, where you have, that's the easier one of the names to say. Icelandic is a very difficult language, so if there's any people who speak Icelandic who are watching this, I apologize for my pronunciation. But Vatnajökull is the largest ice cap in Europe, and there are a number of glacial lobes that come off of it. Okay. And in the national park, you can actually hike up to the terminus of one of those glacial lobes.
Okay.
And so it was just, for me, having studied it and having taught it, every step that I was taking that was closer to the terminus, I'm taking in, oh, there's a recessional moraine, and oh, I can feel the temperature getting colder as I'm getting to the glacier, and oh, I feel the katabatic winds that are coming off of the ice. And so it was just one of those beautiful things to take that theoretical knowledge that I had learned in the classroom and be able to apply it in that real setting. And yes, I am that much of a nerd. I did go up and make sure to touch the glacial ice. So
that's good.
Gotta do it.
Was it cold?
Oh God, yes.
Not as cold as Wisconsin though. Like,
well, it depends on the winter.
This winter was a little, not
Bit warm
as,
this winter.
as wintry. Cool. Yeah. And you had talked about how, going back a little bit, you talked about how there's a little bit of a similarities, but there's also differences. So just before we went on here, you talked to me about how they have more igneous rocks rather than we have more sedimentary rocks, but there's some similarities in between there. Do you want to kind of expand on that a little?
Yeah, so Iceland itself is only about 16 million years old-ish, and is forming because that is one part of the Earth's surface that is trying to tear itself apart. So we call this a divergent plate boundary.
Okay.
And so that is going to result in some magma being produced, and that's going to rise up in the crack between those two pieces of the Earth's crust, and it's going to create new land. So that is mostly basaltic magma, and that means that a lot of the landscape that you're going to be seeing in Iceland is from all of these volcanic lava flows. And indeed, there was an eruption that was taking place while I was there in the Reykjanes Peninsula.
Okay, that's how you pronounce it. I was going to try to pronounce it again, but yeah, we might butcher it.
Again, Icelandic is very difficult, so again, I apologize.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we couldn't get close to the active eruption because there are a number of volcanic gases that actually come off of a lava flow. And if they're collecting in a valley, they can be odorless, they can be colorless, and you could potentially be walking into a very hazardous situation without realizing it.
Yeah.
So we had to stay away from that one, but we did get to hike out to a lava flow that had been generated in the same area 2 years prior. So I still got to see a very fresh lava flow, and not only got to take some amazing pictures and got to study the differences in texture between the pohoihoi texture and the a'a texture, but I also got to collect some samples that I was able to bring back here to Fox, and actually some that I brought here to the Weiss Museum.
Awesome.
And so not only are we using them to enhance the collections here at the Weiss Museum, but I use them in teaching my classes here at Fox.
Perfect. Did you guys have like a guide that you were with?
Yes.
Or you just got to go explore where you wanted?
Yes, so one of the people who are in charge of Geo, etc., he was leading the trip, and we had participants that were from all over the world. The majority of us were from the United States, but we had several people from Australia. In fact, the tour guide, Gary, he was actually from Australia as well. And we also had a woman from Canada who was teaching in Austria, and they came to Iceland for the trip.
Wow.
So, and it was just a wonderful group of educators, and everybody was just so excited about everything that we were learning, and the access that I was getting to some of these places was just truly extraordinary.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's, you know, a picture can say 1,000 words about a place, but having the actual real life experience is probably priceless. So, you know, we kind of emphasize on this podcast that earth science is very important to us. You know, for me, I took your class solely out of...
And he survived.
I survived, but I took your class solely out of because I needed a science credit, but the more I got into it and the more I learned, and being here throughout the years working at the Weiss Earth Science Museum, I've learned how much of a role it actually really does play in our lives. So, you know, is there any, I guess, plug you want to put into having people learn earth science, or maybe taking one of your classes if they're a student that's watching this?
Oh, definitely. So first of all, one thing to keep in mind is anything that you use, if it cannot be grown, it has to be mined. So if, for example, the food that we eat, obviously that has to be grown, but it's going to develop in soil, which has a geologic component to it. The car that you drive, it probably uses gasoline. At the very least, it's going to be using metal in its frame to make for a strong car. That's going to be geologic. But also, we have a number of things in geology where we are working to make life better for people. Yeah. So for example, people who study groundwater are making sure that people have clean, safe drinking water. People who are studying volcanoes and earthquakes are trying to figure out when the next ones are happening so we can warn people or get them to evacuate or something to help make sure that they are safe. Yeah. And it also just makes for a wonderful understanding of the world around us and understanding how our landscapes came to be, and the fact that these landscapes are always changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that you learn by going through the Weiss Museum is that Wisconsin has looked very different over different periods of geologic time. It never stays the same. And so as a geologist, that's very exciting to look at and
Absolutely.
to appreciate.
More than just rocks right beneath our feet.
It is more than just rocks for jocks, yes.
Good deal. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us on the podcast today. We can probably have you on and talk about some more geology related things. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. But yeah, we'll have you on for another episode, and maybe if you get that trip out to New Zealand, and you could talk about that then too.
Oh man, that would be so cool.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for joining us today on our 4th episode of the Hidden Gem podcast. You guys are very supportive of this podcast and everything we do here at the museum, and it really all just goes back into educating the public and making it available for everyone to understand. I just want to let you guys know, if you have any questions that you want us to answer here on the podcast, email us at info.wesm@gmail.com. Again, you can watch and listen on a bunch of different platforms. You can watch it on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can listen to us on Spotify and Amazon Music. Don't know when our next episode is going to be, but we'll let you know for sure when we're filming it. So stay tuned, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.